Hello and welcome back to Vintage Camera Watercolor Tutorial Part 2. Please subscribe us if you haven't done so yet. Here I am going in with my wet over dry. I'm adding in some shadows, and remember my friends, patience is the best. We're going to layer in a little bit on the wet and dry technique, and we have to make sure our paint was dry completely before we apply this new layer. So if you have seen my part 1 of the vintage camera, you'll know exactly where I left off, and here we are. The colors will blend in if it's very wet, so we don't want it to be wet. Make sure you use a hair dryer before you go in with all these second and third layers, just so that we don't disturb our underpainting. Try to use the finest brush you have, and I'm going in with my Blick watercolor brush. It's a 0 size, and it just gives me the right amount of tiny little details on the brush strokes. Here I am adding some tiny sections of dark shadows under the knobs of the camera. As you can see, I'm using a little bit of burnt sienna and pearl orange blended together. I just love those colors from Core by Golden. If you haven't tried Core watercolors, you are missing out on something. This is not a paid endorsement, by the way. And here I am using my favorite Payne's Gray. It's from Van Gogh. And I just love that color somehow. It's just the right amount of gray and blue for me. And it just does the trick. Also, if you are using masking fluid, I would highly recommend, taking it off before you add in your details, just so that it helps keep your surface very clean. Just adding a little bit more details on the knob over here, as you can see. A little bit more of the vertical strokes and some ellipses, and I think I have it going over here against these loose watercolor flowers. It's just bringing out the pinks and the tans to perfection. There you are. Almost done. Once I'm done adding all these little tiny sections with the buttons and the knobs, I'm just going to go in on the sides and then add some more shadows, a couple more of these wet strokes over my dry background. It brings out a lot of that gray and brown. A little bit more brown over here, and I think we're good. For my background for this camera, I'm just going to use a very soft bouquet of lime green. I just like that yellow green, and then a couple more circles that are painted wet. You just see that in a few minutes. Just as soon as I'm done adding some darker browns and sienna over here, just want to emphasize that leathery tan look on my vintage camera over here. And that's about it. And here's my bouquet for the background. It just brings out the pink so well. And in the blink of an eye, we are done. Thanks for watching.